Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson along with Clint Lamb. Today I'm coming to you actually from Santa Fe, New Mexico, came to see some family. Clint, right into it. There's a lot of topics that we got to go over. Most recently, the basketball team winning the SEC in dramatic fashion, coming back from 17 points down. Charlie Strong hired back at Alabama as a defensive analyst. Give us your take on what that means for the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Well, first of all, I think it's really big because you lose Austin Armstrong, who was a
Hmm.
very promising young inside linebackers coach. He's only around for what 2 weeks before he decides to
Hmm.
take the defensive coordinator job at Florida, which makes sense. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a job that you really can't pass up. It's one of the best programs in the country, but Alabama was left, I wouldn't say scrambling. They had like a short list of candidates that they
Hmm.
wanted to target. Robert
Hmm.
Balla was someone that they viewed very highly of. They
Hmm.
thought very highly of, and so they decided to bring him in.
Hmm.
Charlie Strong brings more of that experience factor to complement him because he's a really young guy. He's been coaching for about 10 years, but it's been at
Hmm.
places, like Liberty
Yep.
and
Hmm.
Southern Utah and places like that. So being able to get Charlie Strong on staff, and then you also got Kevin Steele, who's got experience
Hmm.
with the inside linebackers as well. I think that they're the perfect two complements for a
Hmm.
young guy like Bala, who I think is going to be a very good recruiter for Alabama.
Hmm.
And so I think it was really big for them to bring him back.
Clint, when we look at the inside linebacker position coming back to the 2023 season, do you think it was imperative for Alabama to really strengthen that inside linebacker position, not only from the players that are coming up that need more experience kind of going into this springtime, but also from a coaching standpoint? And I know we've kind of went back and forth about Pete Golding's style, but I think was like I'm asking you, do you think that was the overall focus of Coach Saban kind of going into this season with the inside linebackers specifically?
Yeah, it's such an important position in Alabama's defense, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's essentially, Henry To'oTo'o was the field general of your defense. He was a
Hmm.
very, athletic, high IQ type of player. Definitely fit that field general mold as far as the defensive mind is concerned.
Hmm.
He understood what everybody around him needed to be
Hmm.
doing, or where they needed to be
Hmm.
lined up. But I think he lacked something physically a
Hmm.
little bit, and just there wasn't any. He wasn't really a tone setting type of player,
Hmm.
and you want to have guys who not only bring that, the Reuben Fosters of the world, the Reggie Raglins, the Rashawn Evans, but you also want to make sure that they have that, or at least as close to it as possible, is that Henry To'oTo'o football IQ. So you
Hmm.
want to have high profile coaches who know what they're doing, who have experience coaching the position, who not only understand how to properly teach technique and all those things, but also it's a different mindset than your
Hmm.
safeties and your corners and your defensive line. Those guys have to be able to handle the responsibility of essentially calling the defense or making sure that defensive signals are, relayed to everybody else. So it's an extra responsibility. And so I think it's huge that they were able to target some of these coaches. And I do think that there's going to be a huge emphasis on making sure that they get a little bit more physicality at that position. Tresman Marshall being brought in as
Hmm.
a transfer, he's a very physical player, and
Hmm.
he's got a lot of experience in a very similar styled system. And so I think that adds just yet another body with experience that you can kind of, if you need a mic, someone that knows what they're doing, I think Tresman Marshall would certainly fit that. Maybe you could play some Will if they want Deontay Lawson there, but
Hmm.
just yeah, you can definitely tell based off of off-season, moves and decisions, they really want to get more out of that position.
Here with Clint Lamb of Bama Insider. My name is Kyle Henderson. Definitely hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. Be sure and check out our YouTube shorts as well. We got a lot of new content that is popping up as we get closer to the end of basketball season. March Madness with Alabama continuing to do incredible things, and also with spring football coming up, we'll have a detailed list previewing the positions coming to you right here on BamaInsider.com. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys more than you know. Part of Bama Insider with Clint Lamb, Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings, Jimmy Stein. We got the whole crew going in as we get going in 2023. Clint, the NFL Combine, we're in it. And there's a lot of news and a lot of notes and a lot of players that are attending. I think one of the headlines that caught a lot of people's attention is Bryce Young will not throw during the combine. I want your take on that, but also kind of just the overall combine, the sense of what to expect, what you're seeing thus far as kind of we get through some of these early phases, maybe some sound bites that might have stuck out, and then kind of loop back to Bryce Young not throwing and what that means kind of going into as we navigate through the NFL Combine.
Yeah, I think Bryce not throwing makes sense. I don't think that he has a lot to gain. I mean, he's already considered one of the top quarterbacks in this draft, if not the top quarterback. and there's nothing that he's going to do in a combine like setting that's going to set him apart from anybody else. Like I don't think he has as strong of an arm as Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. Like a lot of what he does well are things that are not going to be put on display in a combine like setting. So I thought that it made sense. Like wait till your pro day, you're going to be the only quarterback there or one of the only quarterbacks there, and they might bring in somebody else. I doubt it. I think they're going to let Bryce pretty much handle everything. But and just let him be the star of the show. But when you're trying to compare him directly to some of these other guys physically, he's not going to look as impressive. We all know that. But yeah, I mean, I thought that made sense. I thought the decision from Will Anderson Jr. with him being 6'4", 243 pounds, it is possible that he could have put on a little bit of extra weight to look more favorably at the combine. If you do that, you might not want to participate in every drill. It might make you a little bit sluggish, like you're not used to carrying around that weight. It's the same thing for Bryce Young. Like I guarantee you, he's been trying to put on as much weight as he possibly can. That could have affected how he looked, going through drills and stuff. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he, weighed in, got the height, and then, pretty much from there at the pro day, lost a bunch of weight so he can function again as he normally would, like he was at Alabama. But same thing for Will Anderson Jr. And now, granted, he's going to take part in most of the drills, and I think that's important to note. We're actually going to get to see him today because the defensive line and the linebackers are both going to be going. But Will Anderson, his decision to not participate in everything, I also think from a logistical standpoint, it makes sense because I don't think he has a whole lot to gain. He's already viewed as one of the top prospects in the draft.
And I think kind of to hit on Bryce Young, not throwing, like, big deal. Go back and watch the last 2 seasons of the college football season. And I think sometimes we get caught up so much on combine numbers, whereas it's the performance on the field. And you look to what Bryce Young has done over the last several seasons at Alabama, his incredible ability to extend plays. You can't hit the guy. I'm surprised that the gingerbread man didn't stick, because what he was able to do the past 2 seasons at Alabama was incredible in terms of extending plays, keeping his eyes downfield. And I think over these last 2 seasons, we did see his arm get stronger. I kind of rewinded some of the throws that he made against Georgia, way downfield, right on the money. And I think he's going to only get better as he gets stronger and continues to grow into the player that we all know that he's going to be. I'm curious to see if he is going to be the first guy off the board. And I'm curious to see if, he's going to land up in Houston and kind of get to see his career continue to develop. And same thing with William Anderson. I think, like, when you look to the intangibles that he has, not only as a player on the field, but these 2 guys off the field were the leaders of Alabama, and their mantra, the mentality about working, being a teammate, putting the team first, and how they displayed their abilities towards the back end of the season, continuing to play into the Sugar Bowl, I think speaks volumes of each of them. I think they're great spokesmen for Alabama, but I think each of those guys are going to be a great addition to any NFL locker room. Here with Clint Lamb, my name is Kyle Henderson, coming to you. Actually, today I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is where my mother lives, where I grew up. Clint Lamb back in Alabama. Last night, the Alabama Crimson Tide, as you guys saw, in dramatic fashion, came down from 17 second half, and it was an incredible performance. And one of the highlights, I think, was the play of Javon Quinterly in an overtime performance, a game high 24 points. It's good to see these guys not only win the SEC against Auburn in that type of environment. Clint, your takeaway, and then also give me your take on Quinterly, who's had 41 points over the last 2 games.
Yeah, he's been fantastic, and Alabama's needed it. They've struggled to hit shots from the 3-point mark. They got a little bit better in the second half, but really the 2.5 previous games, everybody but Brandon Miller, I think, was shooting around 36% from the 3-point. Everybody else was, I think, at 12.5% over a 2.5 game, spread. And so that's not great. They haven't been getting the production that they normally would in that way, and they've had to adjust. And Javon Quinterly's been a huge part of that. And just his ability to take over that basketball game. It wasn't just offense; it was defense. Yeah. And I think that's the type of leader that Alabama needs. They need somebody. Brandon Miller is obviously the best player on the team. I think Noah Clowney is certainly up there as one of the best players on the team. They need a veteran presence, and you're not going to get more veteran than a 5th-year guy like, Javon Quinterly, who's been there, done that. He's done the March Madness thing. He understands it, and he's starting to play like, Alabama needs him to play at the right time. So it was an absolutely huge performance from him. it was pretty special for Alabama to be able to overcome a 17-point
Yep.
deficit against your biggest rival in front of your home crowd to be able to cut down the nets and win the SEC regular season title. If you're an Alabama fan, I mean, I'm sure a blowout victory would have been just fine. I think a lot of people's heart rates, would have been in a lot better shape. But at the same time, though, just being able to come back like that when it seemed like they were going to get run out of their own gym with everything on the line, that's a pretty special way to win an SEC championship. So I thought it was very cool to see, especially live.
Alabama will wrap up the regular season on Saturday with a road game against number 24 Texas A&M. Clint, when we look at this team, overall, and as we go into the SEC tournament, even into March Madness, you talk about this team overall. When you kind of step back and look at this team, you know that they are battle tested. I kind of look at the one game that stands out to me is clearly the game last night, kind of that dog mentality that they have in them to be able to come back, face a ton of adversity as this team has overall. But I looked at that game against Gonzaga. And I think at the time, and I seldom tweet. When I do, it's usually something kind of 49ers related or, something that really captivates me. And I think I look back at that game, it reminded me of an Elite Eight game, right? They're in a neutral type setting. Gonzaga, an incredible team, shot the lights out of that game. And when you look to this team overall and what they've been able to do, I think it's easy to they're battle tested, that they have the mentality to really do what they want in the NCAA tournament. I mean, ability to score, defense, come back, close out games. Do you feel that same way? Like, what's the overall kind of mantra of this team going into this basketball season, considering all the adversity that they have faced and kind of where they're playing at right now as a team?
Well, first of all, you're 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10 times, regardless of who you step on the court against, you're going to be the better team. You should be the better team. But in those instances where you aren't playing great, I don't think they've played great basketball the last 2 weeks against Arkansas or against Auburn last night. And yet they still found a way to right the ship, to get things going. So, you're down. I think at one point they were down double digits to Arkansas. I think at halftime it was only 9 points. But you got a 9-point deficit that you had to overcome. Then you've got a 17-point deficit that you've got to overcome. And I understand that the home crowd energy certainly fuels that a little bit. It helps. And that's where both of those wins have come, is in Coleman Coliseum. But at the same time, it's like if things aren't going great, it's not the end of the world. Like, certain teams are going to fall apart when it just doesn't feel like it's their night, that you can't hit shots, you're turning the ball over, you're getting, a ton of fouls called. I mean, the foul distribution from the refs was pretty even, and Alabama had home court advantage. And so Alabama was fouling a little bit too much, and all these things are going against you. A lot of teams are going to fall apart in that instance. And Alabama didn't let themselves become that team. And not there for a second, it looked like they were going to. They were down 17 points. It had gotten pretty ugly, but they were able to battle back, overcome, and win in dramatic fashion. And I think that's only going to help them as they start to get into March, because that's the kind of mentality that you're going to need. Things aren't going to always go the way that you want them to. If they make the kind of run we think they're going to, there are going to be times in some of these games where things aren't going great, and you got to be able to overcome adversity. And whether it be on the court or off the court, with the Brandon Miller situation and Jaden Bradley and Miles, Darius Miles, they've continuously overcome adversity time and time again throughout the season. That's the correct mentality that you want from a team, and I think that's going to bode well for them in March.
Here with Clint Lamb of Bama Insider. My name is Kyle Henderson. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys being part of our Bama Insider as we grow closer to 100,000 subscribers right here on our YouTube channel. Of course, all the coverage back on BamaInsider.com. You can go and read the great articles by Clint Lamb. Of course, our recruiting coverage by Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings, top in the industry. If you guys have a question right now for Clint, you could throw it inside the comment box, or myself, throw it in the comment box right now. I want to kind of run over a couple topics towards the back end of our video today, and it was from the Monday mailbag. And I think this is worth bringing up, because when you look to the Alabama wide receivers, and I think we've been, at least I've been a little bit critical of their play this last season. I'm curious to get your take, and maybe if we can talk, kind of navigate our conversation to some question marks going into spring football. And maybe we just start out with the wide receivers under Tommy Rees, right? You have some very capable receivers that are coming up. You have some new additions. What are your kind of your biggest question marks from the receiver unit as we get closer to spring ball?
I think that it's more of, how can Tommy Rees scheme to get some of these guys open? He's going to have a lot more weapons at his disposal, especially at wide receiver,
Mhm.
than he ever dreamed of at Notre Dame. I mean, when you go look into recruiting, and recruiting is not everything. And Notre Dame recruited some pretty good players. They
Yeah.
I think had 11 or 12 4-star receivers over the last 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
I mean, Alabama's had I think close to 20, like 19 during the
Yeah.
same span, and I think like 15 of them are top 100 players compared
Mhm.
to maybe like only 2 for Notre Dame that were top 100 guys coming out of high school. So just the
Mhm.
amount of recruiting talent that he's going to have available at that position. The biggest question mark with him is we don't know how he'll adjust. You
Yep.
would think with having that kind of, talent at a certain position, you're going to utilize it, but he's never really had to utilize it, right? I mean, he's run his offense through his tight ends, through a running game, through a mobile quarterback in a lot of instances. And so I will be curious to see how he adjusts and how he uses some of these weapons because you've got so much experience coming back.
Mhm.
You lose a ton of experience. I mean, Trayshawn
Mhm.
Holt, JoJo
Yep.
Earl,
Mhm.
Tyler Harrell was a guy who was
Yep.
supposed to be a part of that rotation. There's been several of them to depart, but you still got Kobe Prentice, you still got Isaiah Bond, you got Kendrick Law. All three of those guys now have a year under their belts. You've got Ja'Cory Brooks, who's got a couple of years. You've got
Can I
Jermaine.
just can I interrupt you? Can you, because I was just going to ask you about these super sophomores, right? Like Kobe Prentice, Isaiah Bond, Kendrick Law. I mean, those guys excite me so much when you look to the wide receiver room. What do you like about those three individuals as you kind of gain what we saw from them last year? Because I think each of those guys has the ability to make a major impact this season.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think of the 3, I think Prentice is probably the one that's most capable of handling volume.
Yep.
Isaiah Bond is by far, at least in my opinion, the most exciting of the
Yeah.
trio. I
Yeah.
think he's gonna be an absolute superstar. Is he gonna be a guy who catches 100 balls in your offense? I don't know. Time will tell,
Hmm.
but from what I've seen, I don't really think he's gonna be that guy. He'll probably be like a 60 or 70 catch guy with a lot of explosive plays. You can use him in a lot of different ways. Kendrick Law is kind of, I viewed him coming out of high school more as a gadget player. You just
Hmm.
didn't see him do a whole lot, and he definitely didn't handle any sort of volume in high school, and he didn't have a whole lot of usage as far as targets and stuff this past season for Alabama. So he might be one of those players that never has high volume usage. Kind of I'm not going to say he's the same skill set as Henry Ruggs, but Henry Ruggs never got the kind of volume that Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith or
Hmm.
Jerry Jeudy had. But he was a very
Hmm.
explosive player when he did get opportunities. He blocked his tail off. Kendrick Law has a lot of that blocking ability and that willingness to block. And then with
Hmm.
Kobe Prentice, his ability to win inside and out. He plays a lot of his
Yeah.
reps inside in the slot, but he can win vertically from the slot. And I think that that's
Hmm.
something that Alabama was missing in the offense this past season. Jameson Williams was a perimeter receiver for the most part, but
Hmm.
when he did play in the slot, he had that vertical, field stretching ability. I think Kobe Prentice and Isaiah Bond, both of those two guys can provide that. And just so the versatility that you'll have with this
Hmm.
trio is pretty special. And you also got Shaz Preston, and I don't want to
Yeah.
completely rule him out. He was by some
Yeah.
recruiting services, he was the highest rated of the 4. So
Yep.
we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening with him. But just a very exciting group. And then you got Malik Benson coming in, who's
Hmm.
supposed to be a superstar. You got the veterans and Jermaine Burton and Ja'Cory Brooks. I mean, it is still a very talented wide receiver room in Tuscaloosa. So I don't think fans have anything to worry about on that front.
Okay. Sometimes I just kind of sit back when I'm with Andrew Bone or even with Clint or Jimmy because the wealth of knowledge that these guys have under them, I love it. Like I love to be a part of that dog mentality. So Clint, I always tell you this, man. Like you are doing a fantastic job on the beat at Alabama. I've watched you continue to work on your craft, man. So credit to you. Stay in the trenches. Keep working hard. We love the dog mentality that you have. I have one more question for you regarding this kind of receiver room slash tight end as we move under. That is a question about Amari Niblack. He's a player that I think sometimes we forget to talk about. I like the fact that college football has somewhat evolved to these tight end slash wide receiver hybrids that can be a mismatch. And I think with Amari Niblack, it'll be interesting to see his development this springtime, but how Alabama can utilize someone like him that can create mismatches if he has his hand in the dirt or if he's on the outside, red zone situations. What are you thinking about when we talk Amari Niblack?
I think the number one thing with him, whether you're transitioning from high school to college or college to the NFL, one of the
Mm-hmm.
toughest positions to make that transition is at tight end because not only are you being asked to block better quality players.
Mm-hmm.
You're also having to learn to create separation and catch footballs and stuff against better quality players,
Mm-hmm.
as far as linebackers and defensive backs. So it's kind of a twofold kind of thing. Just the responsibilities that they have. And I think
Yes.
Alabama, a lot of people wanted them to use Amari Black more situationally, flex him
Mm-hmm.
out and just essentially have him as a big bodied receiver. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times when he was in the game, he was not flexed out. He was in line. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that necessarily fits his skill set, but I think it was Alabama trying to get him, better on that front, because if he can become a more complete tight end, you can use him and provide that mismatch ability in so many different ways by lining him up all over the place and not just flexing him out. So, and there's a mental aspect of that. And I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
something that Amari Black, is a true freshman. He's a young guy. It's complicated stuff. I think he
Mm-hmm.
struggled a little bit with it, but that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that's going to continue to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as time and experience happens, he'll get more comfortable, and I think he eventually gets involved in the offense. I don't know if that will be in 2023. I certainly hope that it will be. I think that he
Mm-hmm.
could potentially complement CJ
Mm-hmm.
Dupree and
Mm-hmm.
Robbie Hughes and some of these guys, but
Mm-hmm.
I think Alabama's in a really good place at tight end with the addition of CJ Dupree. And so they've got their kind of headliner guy who's balanced and can do a lot of different things. And then they've got a bunch of other guys at tight end who, are kind of on the brink, and it's a matter of which one of those guys emerges. I think Oots is probably going to be tight end too, but Amari Black can certainly have a role in this offense because of his ability to catch the football and provide such a mismatch for Alabama's offense.
Good stuff, Clint. Hey, well, fam, well, thank you very much for watching our video today. We will recut some of these videos and upload them to our YouTube channel along with YouTube Shorts. He's Clint Lamb. I'm Kyle Henderson, along with Jimmy Stein, Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings, part of the Bama Insider family. Go to the message board, interact with these guys, and definitely drop us a thumbs up like if you like the content right here on our YouTube channel, inching closer to 90,000 strong right here on Bama Insider. Have a beautiful rest of your Thursday. We will be back right here on Bama Insider. Thank you very much for watching. Again, hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe.